This video will go over how FUDSChem's built-in automated data review, or ADR, functions. We will discuss the data inputs that affect the ADR, and how to view and edit the end results. For information on how to set up the rules that govern the ADR's behavior, please refer to our How Does ADR Work Part 1 video linked in the description. Once all of the ADR rules are set up, several data inputs are needed. The first is chain of custody information, which is entered as a chem field file. For information on how to enter this data, please refer to our field sampling chem field entry tutorial video, linked in the description. The ADR will use the sampling dates and times listed in the chem field file to help determine if any samples in the laboratory SED file were analyzed outside of holding times. Additionally, if there are multiple analyte lists, you can choose which one should be used for evaluation in the chem field file. You can set up multiple analyte lists in the eQuap, and each list can be different analytes, flags, and criteria. For example, a project might set up one list for surface soil and another list for lake sediment, so that each matrix can be evaluated differently. The chem field file would specify which samples use the soil list versus the sediment list. Once the chem field data is entered, the lab can submit their SED 5.2 Stage 2A file. When the lab submits their file, the Process with ADR option must be checked for the ADR to run. For details on uploading laboratory data to FUDSChem, please refer to our Laboratory SED Submission tutorial video, linked in the description. As soon as a laboratory certifies a compliant SED 5.2 2A file into FUDSChem, the ADR starts assessing the data based on the rules set up previously in the eQuap. Note that all applicable QCs must be included in the SED file to be considered by the ADR. If a trip blank applies to 10 samples, all 10 of them must be included in the same file. If 5 of them are broken out into a separate file, they will not be qualified based on the trip blank. At the end of processing, the ADR reviews the outliers and their apparent bias and totals them up to determine the final bias. For example, if there is a low recovery or missed holding time, that element gets a negative bias. If there is a high recovery, the element gets a positive bias. For elements not indicative of bias, such as duplicates, no bias is assigned. Ultimately, if there are one or more of the same bias, negative or positive, then that is set as the final bias. If there are both negative and positive biases, they cancel each other out and no bias is assigned. Typically, the automated data review takes less than 10 minutes to run. To check the status of a file, go to Tools, Data Flag Queue. The top portion of this interface shows files that are currently going through ADR and their submission status. The bottom half shows all the SDGs that have gone through ADR in the past 30 days. Once a file gets to the bottom half and its status changes to complete, the data will be visible in the review reports and accessible in the validation tools. To view a summary of qualifiers applied during the automated data review, go to Reports, ADR and Submission Reports, Validator Detail Report. Fill out the drop-downs and click View Report. This report contains information that will be useful to the validator, including laboratory batch and field batch information, outliers, qualified results, detected results, rejected results, reporting anomalies, and data review questions. If the validator updates the qualifiers in the sample qualification tool, this report will update in real time. For more information on the sample qualification tool, please refer to our Validation Tutorial Data Sample Qualification video, linked in the description. At this time, the USACE only requires Stage 2A data to be submitted to FUDSChem. However, individual projects may have different requirements, and the lab may include additional data in their file. Since Stage 2A is the requirement, the ADR will only evaluate Stage 2A data elements. Any additional data elements can be validated by hand. For ISM sampling, if the ChemField data identified all replicates as field replicates, as is recommended, the ADR will be able to calculate the field replicate RSD. Otherwise, validation may need to be completed manually for ISM sampling. For more information on ISM sampling, please refer to our Best Practices ISM video, linked in the description. The validator can go to Tools, Data, Sample Qualification to update qualifiers as needed. Let's say you get to this point and realize that your data was evaluated incorrectly. This might happen if your eQuap was outdated, or if you did not associate your field duplicates with their parent samples when you entered your ChemField file. Once you update your eQuap or ChemField file, you can rerun the ADR by clicking the Reflag button. Reach out to your Synectics point of contact if you have questions about how to make the eQuap or ChemField available for editing. Clicking the Reflag button will send the file back into the flag queue, and the ADR will reevaluate the data based on the current rules set in the eQuap and the current data in the ChemField file. Note that any qualifiers that were modified by hand in this interface will be overwritten when the Reflag button is clicked. If you suspect that a file will need to be reflagged or resubmitted altogether, stop validation to avoid losing your work. Note that the ADR will apply X qualifiers instead of R qualifiers. X qualifiers that are applied by the ADR can be changed to final qualifiers in the Data Usability Assessment, or DUA. For more information, please review our Data Usability Assessment video, linked in the description. Don't forget to subscribe to the FUDSChem YouTube channel for more tutorial videos. All of the tutorials and playlists mentioned during this video are linked in the description below. Lastly, if you have questions or comments, feel free to contact us at fuds.support@synectics.net. Thank you.